Memorial Pathway Academy and Garden ISD Garden USA. Listening to the Rolling Stones as they're rocking and rolling. Because you know what? We're going to be rocking and rolling right now with this awesome guest that we have today. But most importantly, I want to start off by saying happy Veterans Day to everybody. If you served, thank you. A big salute to you out there. Friday was the Marine Corps birthday. Semper Fi, fellow devil dogs, Semper Fi out there, wishing you nothing but the best for all the ultimate sacrifices that you have made for this beautiful country of ours. But you know what? It's not only about our country, but about the future of our country. You know who that is? Our students. And that's why the flagship show, 7 p.m. Eastern, we have awesome guest speakers, authors that, you know what, unfurl those tools and we sharpen them because, you know what, ready or not, they're coming on every Monday. So if you are in Hawaii or you are in Alaska, if you are in Maine or you are in Florida or anywhere in the 48 middle, we need you. You're watching this on the rebroadcast, like it and share it so the algorithm can grow and more of us can learn from our awesome guests today. What do you think about that, Dean Packard?
Josh Tova from the great state of Texas. Great to see you, my friend. And as always, you are on fuego as you start off our show, man. Hey, we didn't match the shirts on purpose. I'm glad you did that. I'm in a new section of my house here tonight. My Wi-Fi has been acting up a little bit, but all in all, it's been really good stuff. Great to see you, my friend. My name is Dean Packard, proud principal of Bay Path Vocational Technical High School in Charlton, Massachusetts, one of the co-founders of Unlock the Middle. And Josh, we are here tonight once again to make the world of education a little bit better with yet another rock star. Man, 132. This is probably like show number 400. Man, we just keep getting better every single weekend. I love that. How have you been, man? It's great to see you.
Doing fabulous, brother. You know what? Just having that special day to knowing that the school that I work at, which is are all brand new immigrants to the United States, and it's a great pleasure for me being a fellow immigrant and teaching them about the importance of honoring veterans on Veterans Day.
Not only an immigrant, but also a veteran yourself, correct?
Yes. But I don't like spotlighting that. But yes,
but thank you for your service, bro. You know that. That's important. We try to teach kids all the time the importance of that. So sorry.
I got you. It's true. Go ahead. Continue. No, it's good, but it's just those things about showing everybody because you know what? They are the future of this beautiful country, just like I was when I came in the late 70s. We are the future of this country, and it's our job to make sure we teach them everything that is beautiful about the red, white, and blue. And that's why we have awesome guests like today. But you know what? We're almost there. And, hey, next week, we got to talk about next Sunday because I'm going to be taking my kids to Virginia. I'll be in the East Coast this weekend. I'm going to go watch Virginia Tech, Enter Sandman. If you don't know what I'm talking about, YouTube it.
Oh, I use that all the time for my football program on my show. I love that. Yes, it's a great lead-in, man. What are you going to Virginia for with your kids?
Watch the football. The Virginia Tech Hokies take on South Carolina State. But you see, last summer I went to TASSP for the conference, and Morris Morrison, a national speaker, talked about the brilliance that is the entrance to Virginia Tech, that it creates a bond. And he was talking about bonding, racial bonding. He talked about educators bonding with their students. And he did the example of Virginia Tech, how when the team comes out, they play Enter Sandman. And when they play Enter Sandman, everyone's bouncing and bouncing. I didn't believe it. Then I saw it. I go, I got to take my kids there. I got to experience that because not only am I bonding with the Hokies, never been a Hokie fan, but bonding with my kids. Hey, Principal Cafele, Fantastic Four. Thank you for being here today.
He's in the house. Absolutely. Principal Cafele, welcome once again. Hey, Josh, great stuff right there. I hope you have a great time with your kids. No doubt about that. Hey, but we have an important guest tonight, so let's get him in here if we can. Right now, it's not about you and me. Let's go. Jorge Valenzuela, nice to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hey, Dean and Josh. Hey, Josh, I actually live in Virginia. I live in Richmond, which is a few hours away from Tech.
That's where I'm landing.
Oh, really? Wow. I was at Tech, I want to say 3-4 months ago. I was at a conference and I drove like 3 hours or whatever it was. And there was nothing but country, very rural. And then all of a sudden I'm at Tech and it's a beautiful city and it's got, all the restaurants and all the hotels and everything. So it's pretty amazing. Congrats.
And you know what, George? I'm a guy that travels watching Man versus Food, as you can tell by my cheeks. And the best pork ribs in the country are there in Richmond. at Nez. What was it called? Nez and Buzz and Nets
It's
outside of the
buzzing
Redskins
Neds.
train.
It's buzzing
Yes,
Neds. Every time my homeboy comes down, I always get it for him. Yeah.
it is the
Buzzing
best.
Neds.
Dean, you need to go there. It is the best pork ribs in the country, bar none.
Well, I'm going to put that on my short list to do. Then, how does that sound? It sounds like a lot of fun. Hey, but we have George with us tonight. George, tell us a little bit about yourself, your origin. What's going on with you? We know that you're an advisor, an author, a coach. You know that you're looking to PBL, your SEL and STEM and all that stuff, computer science. But tell us your origin. Tell us your story. The world wants to know a lot about you.
Wow. So my story began in the mid 1970s. I was born in New York, and I was born to a mom that had some trouble, and I never got to meet my dad. He's actually from Texas, Corpus Christi. He was in the military. Met my mom in Panama. Make a long story short, she had me in New York. She had some issues, and that caused me to go into foster care. I was in a group home, and what I will say about that, in New York, I really appreciate my upbringing because it gave me street smarts. But I also had book smarts. I had these amazing teachers that that were Jewish, and they would drive from the suburbs into Far Rockaway, Queens, New York. And my reading, writing, math, all that was impeccable. And I did extremely well in school. I ended up going to college for computer science. I got talked into teaching a summer school. I'm class 5 weeks, and I fell in love with it. And then I started teaching, and I got my master's, and eventually I became a curriculum specialist. And as I got into that job, I just realized that we were asking teachers from central office to do things that we didn't know how to do ourselves. And I had an interest in it being a transformational leader, not a transactional leader who says, okay, here's the PD, here's the curriculum, here's the books, now figure it out. So I traveled to the West Coast, and I became a national faculty with the Buck Institute for Education. And just make a long story short, I became a master teacher in learning how to plan curriculum, how to facilitate it using high yielding strategies. I got into the PhD program, and I learned the science behind it. And I just started being sent out. I never had the intention of owning a company, of doing what I'm doing now. I just wanted to help education and become the best I could be for the 40 teachers I was responsible for in Richmond. And I just started getting invitations after I started writing articles, and that led to books. And just make a long story short, if you do things, small things right, little successes lead to bigger successes. And it's, I mean, it's an amazing story. I don't, it just wasn't planned. And now I'm in two cities every week. What I will say for anyone watching that is interested in doing what I'm doing, it took 15 years of working with adults, but 9 years of being on the road and not anyone knowing who you are until the pandemic. And then being virtual like this and having so many different people from everywhere seeing you, then puts you all over the place.
So you really had to sacrifice. You had to take a risk. You had to step out of your comfort zone in order to get where you are today. And most people don't realize that. They kind of sit comfortably.
Now,
So talk about how hard that is. That's not easy.
yeah, so I had a lot of anxiety in the beginning. I believed that I had something important to do and to say, right? Like I really believe that. But when I would get in front of people, that anxiety and that lack of confidence and your upbringing, all these things all start showing up. And what I realized is that having overall confidence and being very confident in what you do, it takes time by building self-efficacy for specific tasks. And if you do certain tasks right, then eventually you start to really believe that, well, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then eventually you have overall confidence. And the way I did that was around 2017. I got tired of having anxiety. And I did a Google search, and I'm a big fan of Michael Jordan. And I found a book that's called Relentless, Going from Good to Great to Unstoppable. It's by Tim Grover. And I read the book, I want to say like 15, 20 times. And I got into the psyche and the mindset of how Michael Jordan prepared himself for his job. And I took all those same principles and applied them into what I'm doing now in tandem with 10,000 hours, learning from experts, rehearsing, practicing, doing what I got to do. And then eventually I just built the expertise, and now I have the confidence to go along with it.
That's great stuff right there, man. So I'm happy for you. And I know you're just starting too. That's the coolest thing about the whole journey here.
But it's 15 years to just start.
Get to just start. Yeah, no, man. You got to give up a lot of security in order to do that sometimes. So that's when I say, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone to look for something great, something bigger than what you believe in.
And I agree with that, but there should be some things in place first. So never quit your job if your side hustle does not earn you twice your overhead.
Fair.
If your skill sets are not earning twice your overhead, you don't have a business yet. You have a side hustle, right? And don't leave until you have that 6 months of savings, but also 6 months of contracts. If you can't do that, I do not advise quitting.
You sound like a Dave Ramsey show right here, man. Making sure you're financially sound before you jump out of anything. I absolutely love that. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Really good
It's
advice.
okay to take a risk. It's okay to take a risk, but you have to know what you're doing. I had a friend, and her name is Dana Lauer. I'm not sure if she's watching or not, but when we were at the Buck Institute, she left to do her business. And being at the Buck Institute back then, that was like the major leagues of PD. If you were national faculty there, it's like having a credential. And I could not understand, like, why would she leave? Like, it didn't make sense. Like, this is the big leagues, it's work and everything. And what I realized is that she had a business. She was very confident. She knew what her worth was. And when I learned that, I realized that I wasn't ready. And it took me a few years, but then eventually you know what you're doing. And then it's a risk, but it's a calculated risk.
Fair enough, man.
Yeah.
Great entry right there, Josh.
Yeah.
Hey George, I've been listening to you for a while now, a couple of weeks, and I think I feel I already know you with a bunch of the stuff that I've heard from you. But I want to break down a little bit more about young George.
Okay.
We talked about before the show about you, how were the adversity that you face in life, and that's what makes us stronger. I mean, when we face those adversities early stages in life, and all the things that you went through, and I've heard you talk about another podcast. Talk about these obstacles that life placed in front of you, and how they have evolved you and made you who you are. And mention about what we talked about right before that, Jorge. What's the deal with, you wanted to mention that right now before we started?
Okay.
I think that's a great thing, because you know what, I think I know what you're gonna say. Hopefully I'm not, but that's the same thing. When I came to this country, I got renamed by a bunch of white people. No disrespect to anybody out there. They didn't know how to say my name. They didn't know how to say Federico.
Okay.
So they said, that's too hard. We cannot say your name. So I was renamed Josh, because it made it easy on the teachers, the women from Virginia, from North Carolina. Those were all my educators when I came to this country. They couldn't say Federico. So I got renamed. I don't know. What's your story as a youth and the adversity that you faced?
Yeah. So I'm from Far Rockaway, Queens, New York. And so it was all Hispanic and African-American, and then there was a sprinkle of white. But no, my dad, who's from Texas, who I never got to meet, and he passed away, and he was a veteran, and his birthday is November 13th, is tomorrow. His name was George with a G, and he was stationed out in Panama, where he met my mom, and you know what happened. But she ended up having me in New York, and she wanted to name me after him. But when she was in the hospital, she didn't know English. So she spelled it in Spanish, and she called me George. And I wrote my name George all my life until I did my FAFSA. And when I got my FAFSA back, they wrote back, "That's not your name." So professionally, I spell it the right way with a J. But in my personal life, well, in my whole life, I go by George. Now, if someone wants to call me Jorge, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But my mom calls me George. And I got the
And
receipts.
what you I got you. And you mentioned that book wise, it just came to you. I heard you on a couple of podcasts that book wise, it just naturally came to you. You didn't have the knucklehead that this guy has right here. How, how, how do you feel this came about? I mean, does it absolutely come natural to you, the learning the academics?
No, nothing came natural to me, but I'm very big on systems. I'm very big on processes, on atomic habits, on just putting in the work. Michael Jordan would prepare for a 43-minute basketball game, 45 minutes, 15 times before the game in 90-minute intervals, 3 4 times a day. So I took those same principles, applied it to writing, applied it to speaking, applied it to podcasting, marketing, all the different things I have to work on. And repetition is the mother of skill. You are what you do repeatedly. Aristotle said that. And if you would have spoke to me 5 6 years ago, I couldn't explain it to the same way I'm doing now. So, it just takes time, but it really requires passion. If you're not passionate about what you do, if you don't love what you do more than anything else in the world, then you're not going to get it. And I think that one of the things that is really missing in when I hear people talk with young people, especially, or just people like, speaking about things in general, is that they leave out the hard work. I put in 14, 16 hours a day. I've been doing that for years, and I love doing what I'm doing. I have to stop doing what I'm doing just so I can chill, just so I can spend time with family and things like that. But I think I took 5 years of just doing this, and I neglected everything in my life. I neglected the lawn, my closet. I neglected everything except my wife and kids because I understood not having a family as a young child, as a teenager, that family is everything. So I made sure that that was straight. But everything else, I've neglected. Now I make time for all the things that that have to happen. And yeah, hard work pays off. I think I'm the poster child for that. I mean, definitely. I mean, and I'm not the only example, but I can see that in my life. And I watch a lot of documentaries of people that have succeeded. I just watched Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's an amazing story. He spent 10 to 15 years learning how to be a professional bodybuilder. Then he had goals and he crushed those goals at the highest level for 10 years. Then he became a movie star. He had goals with that and he crushed that. Then he got into politics. And I think that the secret is to never settling, always trying to level up, be a little bit better each day, but be very consistent. And it's a 10,000 hour rule, 3 hours a day, 20 hours a week over 10 years. And I think that you can cut that in half if you do 8, 9, 10 hours a day, which is what I do.
I
Thank you, brother.
go ahead.
Thank you, brother.
Go ahead, Josh.
No, thank you. You taught me that a couple of podcasts ago when you brought that up for the first time. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I love that you use passion as the common denominator to move from good to great, because you're absolutely correct. You've got to be willing to put the time in. I don't care if you're just talking as a student, as a teacher, anybody in life. You've got to be willing to put the work in to separate yourself from the herd of people. And I'll tell you what, it does take 10,000 hours. It takes all that and more in order to really get to where you want to be. And I love that you talk about goals. We talk about goals with students all the time. You can't just come into school and be a good student. You got to be looking at a target. You got to be stretching towards a target, and you got to work towards a target to be really good. George, let me ask you this question here.
Wait. Dean.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Dean, I do want to add one thing. So first,
Sure.
I just realized that Principal Kafele is on
He
I'm a
is. He
big
was.
fan,
Yeah, he
by the
still
way.
is.
I'm a big fan, by the way, Principal
Rock
Kafali. I
star.
really, really appreciate you watching this. I cannot believe it. All right, number
Yeah,
one.
one
All
of the
right.
best in the business.
And, and number two is, so we talked about passion, but in learning about passion and helping teachers help young people find their passion, because right now we have a lot of young people that don't want to be in school. They don't
Yeah,
see the purpose. They're
yeah,
not
purposeful.
seeing they're not seeing with what they're learning is helping them in their life. And so a lot of
Yep.
them don't want to be there. And so in helping teachers understand how to be true to our curriculum, but to find out from young people what they're into is such an important thing. And as I get deeper into this topic, I've realized that the concept of passion isn't universal to every person. Not every single person in this world is going to find something that they're passionate about. Love and passion are two different things. Love, it can be a feeling that fluctuates, it goes up and down. It's also a verb, it's an action that hopefully we do unconditionally. But passion is a compelling enthusiasm for something that you can't shake, you can't stop thinking about. And it stems from cultivating things that you're interested in. Unfortunately, not everyone's going to find that. But I believe that we were put here to help people and to help each other. And so if we teach young people to explore their passions and their interests and cultivate them, that's fantastic. But that's for you. That's a personal thing. If you take what your talents are and you use it in the service of others, now you have a purpose. And the beautiful thing about helping people and having purpose is that you don't have to be passionate about anything. You don't even have to be great at anything. All you have to do is care. And the thing that I left out is that my overall passion, yes, it's education, all the things I'm doing, it being an academic scholar. I mean, no doubt. But my first thing and the first thing that I really care about is helping other people. And I really do believe that that's what has gotten me to where I'm at today. I was in CTE, I was a nurse's aide as a high schooler, and all of my friends, all the girls and everyone was a nurse's aide. So I joined in and I was thinking there to myself, what did I just do? And our teacher gave us a list of why people become nurses. And the very last thing was to help people. And when I read that, I told myself, and my intention was I want to help people. Fast forward a few years, I was watching Bob Marley on VH1 Behind the Music. And he said one statement that changed my life. My life is for other people. And so I think that that's the other dimension to my life. And what I hope that anyone listening right now, whether they want to be a speaker, whether they want to coach others, that they understand and that they pass that message along. All right, sorry, Dean. Back to you.
No, man, no, and that's vitally important what you're saying there. Let me just circle back for a second. You know what? In your success that you had so far, who is the person or the people that have inspired you throughout your career, and who motivates you now to continue to keep moving forward?
Well, I would say is faith is the first thing. Belief and faith are two different things, right? You can say you believe a lot of things, but when it hits the fan, whatever's in your heart is going to come out. And so I definitely work on faith first. But my influences would have to be, I would start with Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle wrote a book, it's called A New Earth, and he talks about spirituality and just being stoic. And so that's a big influence in my life. I would say Tim Grover, Ava DuVernay. She's done a lot of work that it focuses on young people like myself that have been marginalized, and lots of great success stories. Um, 50 Cent, he is a marketing guru. His glow up is amazing, and I'll just give you an example. Like, I read his book, How to Hustle Harder, and he basically, to be known, he dropped free mixtapes, free music. Free mixtapes led to the record deal, and that led to the concert. So I just took that marketing, articles, free articles, led to books, which led to the PD. Um, who else? Jay McTighe. I'm a big fan of Jay McTighe. Backwards design planning. I mean, that's just an amazing way to not just plan lessons, but also how to plan your life. Zoran said that life can only be understood backwards, but you have to live it forwards. Um, I'm John Hattie. I mean, like, he has an entire, an entire meta-analyses where he's curated instructional strategies that have high influences on academic achievement and engagement. That has helped me in understanding how young people learn, or how anyone learns, and what the conditions are and what the factors are. And I've been able to take that, apply those things into my work, right? Visible learning, right? And then apply that and make my own protocols and make my own strategies. And so it's been an amalgam of people. Just an amalgam of people. But right now, I would say, is entrepreneurs that are not just 7-figure earners, but that are 7-figure fathers, mothers, husbands, wives, have great finances, have their entire life where they're not slacking or messing up in the major areas of their life. It's not just about business. It's not just about work. It's about being a great person. And so I listen to Ed Milet. Ed Milet is a podcast where he brings on these entrepreneurs, and that's how I learn.
Great stuff right there.
George, you just said I was going to lead into. You're a strong family man,
Yeah.
and you talk about your kids, and you know that in our field, a lot of times we get lost as you go up the chain from teacher, department head, assistant principal. You lose that connection with your own family because those 10,000 hours come in. You
Yeah.
can't move up the chain to district office if you don't put in those times, especially if you take over a high school that is really in the gutter, or a middle school that's in the gutter. You got to put in those 10,000 hours. So what would you say right now to that educator or anybody about the constant unity of a family and what they need to put in to make sure that they expound and make their sphere of influence stronger?
Yeah. So on everyone's deathbed, well, I'll just back up a little bit. No one is no one is going to remember that we worked on weekends and we work late nights except our kids. And I was told many, many years ago that your children have a small window of time to be little. And when they're little, they're going to think the world of you. And they have a long time to be big and be older. And if you didn't do that part right, if you weren't a good parent, and being a parent means that I know what's best for you and I'm going to guide you. And being a parent is only temporary. You eventually have to become a friend if you did parenting right. So I already knew that. And that was actually in A New Earth. Eckhart Tolle talks about that. And it's not about seeing if people did homework, if they ate. Those things are part of being a parent. But it's about being present. Being present where your child knows, I see you, I hear you. They don't doubt that they're being loved. And the amazing thing about being present, even if it's only for 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, because even they're busy now, right? Is that their self-esteem is built up. If you leave your children a bunch of money with no self-esteem, It's not going to mean anything. But if their self-esteem is built up and you've left them that they know that they were loved and cared about, then they're going to know how to love and care about other people. And that's really what it's all about. It's all about relationships. But the thing is this, relationships are the most difficult thing in life. And if you work with people, we start seeing that people don't know boundaries in relationships. For example, there are professional relationships and there's personal. And it's almost like you see people that in their personal, they want all the right things: loyalty, love, respect, and companionship. But then they go to work and they're also looking for love, loyalty, and respect, right? But that's not, like, we're not going there to be friends. We are going there. Number one, our intention should be is to accomplish my professional goals and to help everyone else accomplish their goals as well. If it's students, I'm helping them with their academic goals. If it's my colleagues, it's with teaching. If I'm a coach, it's whatever those needs in the contract are, right? And if we become friends, that's fantastic, but we can't lead with that. And so I think that if we know what we want out of our relationship with our children, our spouse, our partner, and then we actively make time to be present and be the best that we can while doing the things that we're passionate about, then I think we'll be okay. One of the things I've seen, and I do a lot of long-term contracts, is that we're not always able to solve every problem in the school. That's just it's just reality, right? We can solve some things, but not the whole thing. But what I've realized is that the people that are trying to fix things fix themselves. And it's almost like a miracle that their own family gets fixed too. I think anyone that has older kids, and I have an 18-year-old and I have a 21-year-old, one of the most amazing things is when you sit back and watch your kids as they get older and you realize that they're really good people, right? And it's not always you, right? It's other people. It's God. I'll just say it. It's God, right? If you're trying to work on things and you're trying to make things better for people, then things work out for you and yours.
You bring up God and spirituality. I mean, how do you embed that into, educators' worlds, entrepreneurial worlds? How do you create that balance between spirituality and family and professional life? How does that work? I mean, everybody's different when it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, I start every day with, prayer and meditation, right? I start my day with that and I end it in the same way. And I always pick three things that I'm grateful for: whether I caught the flight on time, whether we had a great dinner, whether we had a great service, whatever it was. I pick three things each day that I'm very grateful for. And then I pick one thing where I failed or I came up short somehow and I have to work on it. And so I'm constantly in a reflective mode. John Dewey once said, "We don't learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience." And so I reflect, but I turn those reflections into meditation, into prayer. And so I lead from there, right? Now I know that most people don't. And you might call it emotional intelligence, you might call it spiritual awareness, whatever you want to call it. But the fact is this, is that we're not just human. I, I'm sorry, we're not just in a physical body, right? Just the fact that we can think about thinking is proof of that. There's something else inside of us, right? And so I tend to lead from there, and I tend to water that and feed that the same way I do my physical body. And so I'm constantly thinking that way. It took a while to learn that. And if you guys, well, if the audience is interested, The Power of Now and a New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Powerful books. And I read them for about 3 years straight at a time in my life where I suffered a major loss. And anyone out there that's ever overcome a traumatic experience knows you have to feel it to heal it. You have to. And those are the books, and that's the author, that his work helped me to understand parts and dimensions of myself and ways out of that, right? And how to heal. And I just, took it with me.
Love it. Love it.
Another
Hey,
question.
I'd like to welcome JT. We've been reaching out to JT. Hey, come on the show, JT. And Donna, thank you for being here, part of the Fantastic Four with Principal Café Chica Houston and Coach Hurd. Hey, George, real quick, you talk about music on a lot of your podcasts, but you never go into that. All right, so I'm going to ask you quick questions. All
Uh-huh.
right? All right, brother? Here we go. Give me 3 artists you grew up with.
Motley Crue, Tupac,
Woo! Woo!
and Queen.
Queen. All right. All
Freddie
right.
Mercury, yeah.
Talk to me about three artists that you get inspired by their story.
Jay-Z, 50 Cent, and Tupac.
All right. All right. All right. And here goes the last one. Last one. Ready? Give me the 3 songs that make you pop. When you get in that car and you need that pop, that I bet, boom. Which one motivates you? Give me the 3 songs.
California Love, Home Sweet Home, Motley Crue,
Woo!
and What Up Gangsta, 50 Cent.
Woo! Look at you. Thank you, senor.
I'm eclectic. I have an eclectic taste. Yeah, because I grew up in the 80s where it was the hair bands and rock and roll that was popular. But then in the late 80s, and then once Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg hit, it was all hip hop after that. So I got both of those worlds.
But
So I like all kinds of music, but I like rap music better.
you actually got that out so quick, man. That was like right on the tip of your tongue. So great work with that, 100%. Hey, let's talk a little bit about project-based learning, PBL. What is PBL first and foremost, and why have you found PBL as embedded? Have to be embedded in the work that you do? Talk to us about that.
All right. So think of someone being a very talented baseball player, football player, basketball player. Let's take with football and basketball. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the playbook and you get put on a team with other players that know plays and the opponents know plays, but you don't have the playbook, it doesn't matter how great you are. You are going to fail. You are winging it, essentially. We all follow that, right?
Yep.
As a young teacher, I was not a great teacher because I didn't understand high yielding strategies. I didn't have a playbook. So my personality is what helped me survive. And what I realize now is that I was a great supervisor of children, but I wasn't a great teacher. And I learned how to become a teacher through project-based learning at the Buck Institute. We had a workshop, and the workshop was a 3-day workshop. And essentially, we first learned how to plan a project or a unit plan, because a project is the same thing as a unit plan. And we learned how to deliver our workshop as if it were an actual PBL project, right? And so we learned strategies for how to open the project, how to facilitate it, how to do assessments, how to monitor, manage student behavior, student work, the entire process, and how to culminate it to the end where there's a public product. And so after doing that over and over again for about 4 or 5 years, I became a teaching expert. When I went into the PhD program, then I learned the science behind it. So project-based learning, right? It's basically an amalgam of behavioral and cognitive learning theories. It's constructivist teaching, where learning happens not right away, but along a continuum or a process. And so when I started to work with adults and coach adults in different things, I took those principles and applied them. And eventually, because I learned the science behind it and I learned what the outcomes were, when I'm engaging you right now, I want you to be engaged. I want you to be into the conversation. So I'm saying things that I know are going to tug at your heart, but I'm also going back and forth. I'm asking you questions and I'm respecting you and all these different things. Once I learned that, then I took aspects of PBL, right? And I started to incorporate that into everything I do. And not everything has to be a project, but everything we do, whether in a workshop, in a classroom, anywhere where you are facilitating, you have to know not just the needs of the learner, but know them as people, their interests and their goals and their assets, so you can make the right instructional decisions. And so that's really the secret. Like you can't be in schools because you're just a great speaker, because you're inspirational. Schools have to figure out teaching and learning, and PBL is just one way of teaching.
Perfectly stated.
Yeah.
All right, George, we're gonna go back to that other fun side of your brain. All right, I'm gonna ask you two sets of questions.
All right.
Have to do with movies, brother. Have
Okay.
to do with movies. All right.
All right.
So I'm gonna throw it off first. I'm gonna give you like a 10 seconds to think about them. Right.
Okay.
Give me the three movies that make you pop, just you as an individual, and then three movies that inspire you on the work that you do. Three movies that inspire you as a human being, as a dad, as an educator, entrepreneur. No, educator, dad, and over here, three that have to do with your work.
All right. So first I'll say it's Goodwill Hunting. Goodwill Hunting. That's number one. Number two is a movie. Oh my God. Oh, The Shack. Ever hear of The Shack?
No.
The Shack. I recommend it. I really recommend it. I recommend it. It's about a
Who,
guy.
who's in that?
I forgot who's in it because it's no one really famous.
Okay.
Um, I'd say The Blind Side. It's a really good one. So I think those three are movies that inspire me that I go back to every now and then.
What about the work? Talk to me about the work. Which movies inspire you with the work that you do?
Back to the Future, number one. You know,
Why is that? You planted that seed. Why Back to the Future?
there's a lot of technology in the movie. There's a lot of imagination, creativity. And so just to see how they try one thing, they fail, and they try another thing, and then they eventually figure it out, and then they got to come back. So that goes right back to STEM and computer science, right? And not just that, but if you think about blooms, right? I live in three different verbs of blooms. Analysis, you're going to analyze what I'm saying, what I'm modeling, the article, the informational text, or the video. You're going to take this analysis and you're going to synthesize what you learn and make your own artifact. Then we're going to evaluate the learning. And part of evaluation is testing, right? And redoing things. And so that's like the type of movie. That's the first time I think I was exposed to that, right? It's Back to the Future. Movies that inspire me. So honestly, probably the Rocky movies and probably Creed. Rocky is a sentimentalist, right? And when I look at a character like that, and Sly Stallone just said this in his documentary, by the way, he said, Rocky says the things that I wished that I could have been man enough to say, something like that. And I think Rocky is a character that I wish that I could be like as a person. But I've realized that you can't be like that because when you're nice, right, you have to be a good person, but you can't be nice to everyone. Rocky's nice to everyone, and nice people get taken advantage of, right? So ideally, I would want to be Rocky, in my work, just in any part of my life, but I realize that's not reality, but it's very inspirational.
Thank you for sharing those Movies. And
George.
I'm gonna look up the Shack.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me about entrepreneurship and how you are driving that train and people moving forward. What does that look like? I mean, this is what I say to teachers all the time. If you're a teacher, you have a shop, you are, or a restaurant, and you are making a menu and selling to kids, and you want those people coming back to your restaurant all the time. So think about this in the field of education. Where does entrepreneurship come in?
Right. So the first thing I do want to say is I never intended to ever be an entrepreneur. That was none of my plans. It was something that happened when I wrote an article for Little Bits. I'm a computer science major, so my initial work was a lot of STEM, a lot of computer science. And I wrote an article, and a school in Virginia reached out, and they were like, "Hey, George, we want to hire you. Do you have a company?" I said, "No." And he said, "Well, we can't do a contract with an individual. So you have to have a business." And what I realized is that when people like you and they want to work with you, then they will help you. But for so that just happened. But for anyone listening, first thing we need to understand is this is that 50% of all small businesses fail the first year. And more than 95% of small startups fail within the first 5 years. So we are 6 years in business and we're doing extremely well. And what I'll say is this: I'm always flying the plane. Well, I'm building the plane as I fly it, I mean. And I don't always know exactly what will be needed to to or what's going to happen as far as building the plane, but I know the tools that I will use. So I've got four things. I have content, I have branding and marketing, and artificial intelligence tools. And so that's my framework, is those four things. Branding, I haven't figured out marketplace, but I understand personal branding. Your personal brand is whatever people think about when they see or hear you. And so if we have a business, we have to get in front of the narrative. Otherwise, other people say things about you. So that's an important thing. My content is my articles, is my books, is my podcasts, is workshops, and my video and my reels. In the first 3 4 years of the business, it was just articles, books, and PD. However, times change. So now it's video, it's reels, and it's podcasts. Marketing, there's only two pieces of real estate that you actually own. It's your website and it's your newsletter. Social media channels are essentially rented real estate, and you have to pay to be seen. If you don't pay the ads, you're not going to be seen. Um, I'm on other people's websites now. I have sponsors on the podcast, so that is part of marketing. And then I use AI tools. I use a number of them, but for the videos, for editing the podcast, for all my social media, like if you look at my Instagram, like it looks amazing. So I figured out that part. Now the following, the algorithms don't support what we do, right? If you're not being controversial, if you're not naked, if you're not doing silly dances or being funny, you're not going to be supported. That's just how it works. Um, but you need a strong presence. And if you have a strong presence, folks that are looking to hire speakers and coaches, they are going to Instagram and to LinkedIn. So you need a strong presence. Um, I think eventually that will work out for me where I'll have a bigger following, but I have a strong presence, I'll say, and it's high quality work. And so those are the moving pieces. So I don't know exactly what will happen next year or the year after. I'm building the plane as I fly it, but I know the tools I'm going to use. And I apply those same principles to my relationship, but with my family and friends and in the gym, every aspect of my life. I'm always building the plane. I'm never comfortable. I understand that, yesterday's price is not today's price, but I know the tools, I know the frameworks. And that's one of the secrets.
You're evolving, my friend. Evolving, never standing still. That is the
Never.
future of education in a nutshell, right there. Great stuff, man. So glad you shared that out, Josh.
Closing thoughts, George. Closing thoughts for that educator that's about to get into their car, go to work tomorrow. That administrator, that school bus driver. Some words for them as we are about to start another fabulous week.
Yeah. So think about your own self care. You have to always work on yourself first. You can't pour from the empty cup, all of that. Always be leveling up. If you see people that are really upset, it's because they're doing things they don't want to do. That's why they're upset. They're doing the same thing year after year and they're not seeing any progress. And sometimes they don't have goals. So try to make some goals and try to level up. But the one thing that I will say is that remember that the young people that are in our classrooms, are in our schools, we were put there and they're in our care so we can help them be the best that they can be. So whatever we have going on, we have to remember that first. Our teaching, it's not about us. It needs to begin with us. It does, but it's about the kids. So we should always ask ourselves, and I ask myself this, whether I'm working with young people or adults, what is it that they need from me? What is it that they need? And then I start from there.
Right there, man. There's a home run. Inside the park home run, to say the least.
Well, you know what? We'd like to give a big shout out to JT Taylor. Hopefully, he joins us in the show in the near future. To Donna, part of the Fantastic Four. Principal Cafele, thank you for being here tonight. I think Central Hicks was here earlier. Yeah, we'd like to give a shout out to that. And thank you very much, George, for being here tonight. But it's not over. It's not over, Dean Packard. Office hours tomorrow. Office hours tomorrow. A 20-minute problem-solving show. And tomorrow's is going to be a doozy. What would you do? 4 educators from across the United States, 20 minutes. How will they solve this problem? I don't know. So tune in tomorrow. New time, new channel. George, go for it. Talk to us.
Hey, Josh, I do want to say one thing. So, Dean and Josh, thanks for having me on. I appreciate that. But, Josh, every day or every other day, you're shouting out my podcast and all these things. And I just want to say thank you for that. I really appreciate that, brother. Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Hey, brother. Hey, you make me better. That 10K hours, you made me better right there, brother. I really. Hey, Tim Cavey, thank you for being here also. Kefa, thank you for being here. Great show, great guest, great everybody. But tomorrow is going to be awesome. 20-minute problem-solving show. What do you think about that? And thank you, George, for the shout-out. Appreciate that. What do you think about that, Dean Packard?
I'll tell you what, Josh, outstanding once again. George, thank you so much for joining us, man. Your passion shows through in everything that you do. And most importantly, man, I know someone like you, you're just starting. The ripple effect that you're going to make in regards to what you do, you can't even quantify that yet, man, because you are behind your beliefs and you're doing what's right for people. And when you have that behind you and you have that belief and that momentum, sky's the limit. So thank you, man. Thank you so much for joining us. And you know what? As you said to Josh earlier, we're here to network you, people like you who are just doing things to make people better around them. And ultimately, that's the greatest thing about this whole thing that we do in this world of podcasting and bringing people together. Hey, I'm going to give you the last 15 seconds, 20 seconds, George. Go. What do you want to say out there?
I think I said it all already. Just be good to other people, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, but just you go out there and level up and crush everything you do and work on yourself until you believe in yourself and you don't doubt it.
There it is right there. Be the best you can be because kids deserve it each and every day. Well, there you have it. On behalf of George, Josh, and everybody out there, we wish you a great week in the field of education. More importantly, be true to yourself, be true to those kids, and have a lot of fun. Stay tuned 1 second. So I'm George for 1 more minute. Everybody have a great